When do we start to learn to read?
That's one of my favorite questions, like, when do we start learning to read? Some tell you, like, well, I think it starts, the first day of kindergarten. And then others say, like, no, wait, it starts when you're introduced to letters for the first time. And then others are like, no, it should actually start when we learn language. So we think that learning to read starts in utero because the fundamental milestones for learning to read are sound and language processing, and sound and language processing start in utero.
I have 2 older children who learn to read quite easily, but with my 3rd child, I noticed that he was having trouble grasping the basics.
One of the first things I remember about learning to read is in 3rd grade when they took the other kids to learn how to type, and they took me to a different room to continue working on reading.
He could not recite the alphabet. He could not name his letters and sounds. And he was frustrated as he was trying to sound out words. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what. And that's really the challenge of the journey that so many parents face.
There's these 3 key areas in the left hemisphere where you have oral language, recognizing letters, and mapping the sounds of our language onto the letters. When we have kids struggling, it's often because there is not as strong of a connection between the sound of learning to read and the mapping onto the print.
There's so much that goes through our mind when we're told that a child has dyslexia. First of all, even just understanding, what is it? What does it mean? I think it's striking for parents to realize how young kids perceive that they're different and that they're not learning at the pace that their peers are.
Children early on feel, I am different, everyone else figures this out, I can't map these sounds onto the letters. That has tremendous implication for how you see yourself as a learner and how you see yourself as a community of learners.
Couldn't agree more. With our son, as young as kindergarten, he started calling himself stupid. He knew he was different than his peers. Not a stupid child at all, very smart, but he wasn't learning. And everyone around him was able to do things that he couldn't do.
Research has shown that the brain structure as well as the brain function is different in children with dyslexia compared to their peers. Some of these brain characteristics in children with dyslexia actually predate the start of formal reading instruction. So these kids start their first day of kindergarten with the little backpacks with a less optimal brain for learning to read.
The exciting thing is, if you catch it early, you can prevent a lot of the issues, right?
Mm-hmm. In medicine, we have these preventative approaches, and they can be mapped onto preventative education. I'll give you an example. So you go to your PCP, and he or she or they may ask, today I think we should do a cholesterol check. So you get blood draw, the results come back, and you have an elevated risk for developing heart disease. Your doctor will not give you a diagnosis right away. They will say, let's do something right now to reduce the risk. And the ultimate goal is that you never develop heart disease. So when we map that onto the education context, it's very similar.
Statistics say that 95% of children, even those who have been diagnosed with dyslexia, will learn to read if you identify them early and give them good instruction. And my experience with my son is exactly that.
Working in a lab, you do a lot of reading of scientific papers, and those are really dense, really hard to read, and there's no way I would be able to do that without the training that my mom gave me.
I felt that the fact that not every child in the country has access to that was important. So I knew if we launched Sprout Labs, we could bring those resources to all children across the country and around the world. It's really important not to sit back and wait and think, oh, this will go away. Because if you have a hunch, typically our hunches are correct.
If we see our trajectory of learning to read starting in utero, that shifts the whole timeline, and it highlights the importance of early identification prior to the start of formal instruction.
That's what we can do as parents. That's the gift that we can give our children, is to pay attention to that early, get them the right resources, they will become readers. It's exciting.
I'm so grateful for what my parents did. Specifically, my mom knew from when I was very young, and I'm very, very grateful that that work was done then so that I could learn how to read and be where I am today.